The Galactic Council chamber hung in the silent dark between stars, a ring of black stone and shimmering light that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. Inside, the air hummed with tension. 317 alien species watched from their floating platforms, their forms as varied as the worlds they came from, some made of crystal, others of mist, some with too many eyes, others with none at all. At the center of it all, alone and small, stood Captain Elias Rourke. He wore a simple Earth-made pressure suit, scorched along one shoulder, patched at the knee. His face was tired, his eyes red from lack of sleep, but his posture was straight. He did not tremble. He did not look away. Above him, rising like a storm-given shape, was Vaylon the Unbroken, the High Arbiter of the Galactic Council. Vaylon had no true body, only a shifting column of silver mist that spoke with a voice like grinding planets. Humanity, it boomed, the sound vibrating through bone and metal alike. You stand accused of unprovoked aggression. You destroyed a Xanthar dreadnought near the Proxima border. You left no survivors. You offered no warning. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Xanthar delegation, tall, armored beings with obsidian carapaces and glowing red eyes, stood rigid, their claws clenched. Their leader, General Kor, stepped forward. They struck without honor, without reason. They are savages wrapped in cleverness. Sentence them. Elias took a slow breath. He reached up and tapped a small device on his wrist. A soft chime echoed. Then above the chamber floor, a hologram flickered to life. It showed Xanthar officers in a war room, speaking in their guttural tongue. Subtitles scrolled beneath in Galactic Standard. The humans grow too fast. Their fusion reactors outpace our own. Their AI learns in days what takes us cycles. If we wait, they will surpass us. We fabricate an incident. Make it look like they attacked first. Gasps filled the chamber. The Xanthar froze. General Kor's mandibles twitched. Elias spoke, his voice calm but carrying. We didn't destroy your ship, General. We disabled its weapons, its engines, its comms. We boarded it. We found your orders, and while you were busy planning your lies, we were listening to your private channels for 6 months. He turned to face the council. You call us primitive. You say we've only been in space for a century. But in that time, we've built faster ships, smarter networks, and better shields than half the species in this room. And we did it without conquest, without slavery, without burning worlds for fuel. Vaylon's mist swirled, disturbed. Even if your claims are true, your actions were reckless. You provoked a major power. Reckless? Elias almost laughed. You quarantine entire planets over minor trade violations. You let empires like the Xanthar bully weaker systems because it keeps the peace. But peace built on lies isn't peace, it's fear. And fear is what got you here. He paused, letting the words sink in. We didn't come here to beg. We came to warn you. The Xanthar aren't just after Earth. They're testing the Council's spine. If you punish us for defending ourselves, you tell every empire that the rules only protect the strong. Silence stretched. The crystalline Vorthai leaned forward, their facets glinting. The gelatinous Mixari rippled with curiosity. Even the Krelliks, usually silent and judgmental, shifted their many limbs. Then, from the back of the chamber, a voice crackled over the comms. A human voice, tight with urgency. It came through Elias's earpiece, but he didn't hide it. He let it play aloud, Captain. Orbital grid just went dark. All satellites. All defense arrays. Something's jamming us from high orbit. Elias's face didn't change, but his fingers curled into fists. Vaylon sensed it. What is this? A signal, Elias said quietly. From home. Another voice cut in. Admiral Mara Lin, commander of Earth's United Stellar Command. Her voice was steady but strained. Elias, they've launched. Xanthar fleet, 30 ships, breaking through the Oort cloud. ETA to Earth, 90 minutes, the chamber erupted. Delegates shouted. Alarms blared on alien consoles. General Kor barked orders to his officers, his eyes wide, not with guilt but with panic. They hadn't expected Earth to survive long enough to report back. Elias looked up at Vaylon. You wanted proof we're not savages? Watch what we do now. We won't run. We won't hide. And we sure as hell won't die quietly. He turned off the hologram. The image of the Xanthar conspiracy vanished, but its echo remained. You think this is just about Earth? Elias said, his voice low now, almost gentle. It's not. It's about who gets to decide what a species is worth. You've spent centuries judging others by your own rules. But humanity? We write our own. Before anyone could respond, Elias tapped his wrist again. A small drone, no bigger than a bird, unfolded from his belt and zipped toward the ceiling. It projected one final image, a live feed from low Earth orbit. There in the black, the Zenther fleet descended like a swarm of metal locusts. But Earth did not look defenseless. Across the planet's night side, lights flared not from cities but from hidden installations buried under ice, desert, and ocean. Massive energy signatures bloomed. Ancient structures, long thought to be ruins, began to glow. The Council watched, stunned, as Earth, quiet, underestimated Earth, woke up. Elias turned to leave. "You can keep your judgment. We've got a war to win." As he walked toward the exit, no one stopped him. Not the guards, not the Zenthar, not even Valen. They were too busy staring at the screen, at the tiny blue world that refused to kneel. Back on Earth in a bunker beneath Jakarta, Dr. Cale Voss stared at his monitor as seismic sensors spiked. "They're not just bombing us," he whispered to his team. "They're trying to crack the planet open." In orbit, Commander Tessa Rowe powered up her prototype corvette, the Wren, hidden in the shadow of the moon. Her fingers danced over the controls. "Time to remind them why you don't poke a sleeping dragon," she muttered. And in Geneva, deep beneath the old UN headquarters, Admiral Lin gave the order. "Activate Project Bastion. All hands, this is not a drill. This is survival." The Zenthar thought they were attacking a fledgling species. They were wrong. They were attacking humanity, and humanity had been preparing for this moment since the first cave. Dweller looked up at the stars and asked, "What's out there?" Now they would show the galaxy the answer, not with words, not with pleas, with fire, steel, and something far more dangerous, the unbreakable will of a species that had clawed its way out of extinction more times than it could count. The first Zenthar ship entered the atmosphere. Earth answered, and the stars held their breath. The Zenthar warships tore through Earth's upper atmosphere like comets wrapped in steel. Their gravity bombs, sleek black spheres humming with artificial singularities, plummeted toward the planet's surface. The plan was simple: fracture the crust, boil the oceans, and leave Earth a dead rock. A warning to any species that dared defy the Zenthar Empire. But the ground did not break. In Jakarta, Dr. Cale Voss watched from an underground command center as the first bomb struck the Java Trench. Instead of a cataclysm, the ocean glowed. A pulse of blue light rippled outward, and the bomb stopped. It hung mid-fall, frozen in a field of energy that hadn't existed on any human schematic an hour before. "What is that?" someone shouted. Kyle's eyes widened. "It's not ours." Across the globe, the same thing happened. In the Sahara, a bomb hovered over dunes before sinking slowly into the sand, swallowed by something beneath. In the Andes, mountains trembled, then split open to reveal smooth, metallic walls older than human history. The precursor vaults, the ruins humanity had spent decades studying but never understanding, were waking up. On the bridge of the Wren, Commander Tessa Rowe banked hard to avoid a plasma burst from a Zenthar destroyer. Her ship was small, fast, and invisible to most scanners thanks to experimental stealth tech. But she wasn't here to hide. She was here to plant. She fired a cluster of tiny drones toward the enemy vessel. They latched onto the hull like insects. Each carried a quantum resonance charge, not meant to explode but to vibrate at a frequency that disrupted the Zenthar's neural command network. Within seconds, the destroyer's weapons went dark. Its lights flickered. It drifted, confused, like a beast with a broken mind. Tessa grinned. "Sleep tight." Back on Earth, cities were evacuating. Not in panic, but in order. Schools, hospitals, even zoos had protocols. Humanity had practiced for this. Not because they expected aliens, but because they'd survived ice ages, plagues, and their own wars. They knew how to endure. In Nairobi, 16-year-old Jory Nkosi sat in a dimly lit server room beneath a community tech hub. Around him, dozens of teenagers, some as young as 12, typed furiously, their screens filled with code, star maps, and strange symbols pulled from the newly active vaults. Jory wasn't a soldier. He was a coder, a dreamer. But now he was something more. "The vaults aren't just buildings," he told his team, voice steady despite his racing heart. "They're keys. And someone left them for us." He'd found a pattern in the energy pulses, rhythms that matched human brainwaves during deep thought, during music, during grief. The precursors hadn't built defenses. They'd built a language, and humanity was finally learning to speak it. High above, in the silent void near Mars, Admiral Mara Lynn watched the battle unfold on her main display. Her fleet, only 12 ships, all outgunned, was holding the line. Not by fighting, but by misdirection, fake signals, ghost fleets, illusions created by bending light with orbital mirrors. The Zenthar were powerful, but they were predictable. They followed doctrine, humanity. They improvised. Lynn tapped her comm. All units, hold position. Let them think they're winning. She knew the truth. Earth wasn't relying on ships or soldiers alone. It was relying on something the Zenthar couldn't comprehend. The entire planet was fighting back. In Geneva, deep beneath the old UN building, Project Bastion hummed to life. It wasn't a weapon. It was a network, a global web of sensors, AI nodes, and ancient tech, all tied together by human intuition. Engineers, teachers, farmers, and kids like Jory were feeding it data, ideas, even songs. The system learned. It adapted. And it protected. One Zenthar commander aboard the flagship Iron Maw growled in frustration. Why won't their cities fall? Why do their oceans resist our bombs? His second-in-command checked the scans. Sire, the planet itself is shielding them. It's as if Earth is alive. Back at the Galactic Council chamber, Elias Rourke stood near the observation deck watching the live feed from Sol. The council was in chaos. Some species demanded intervention. Others called for Earth's immediate destruction to contain the anomaly. Valen the Unbroken remained silent, its silver mist swirling slowly. Elias didn't beg. He simply said, "You wanted to see what humanity is capable of. Now you're seeing it. We don't just survive, we turn threats into tools." A Mixari delegate, its gelatinous form pulsing with curiosity, floated closer. "How did you activate the vaults?" "Our scholars studied them for centuries. They were dead." Elias smiled faintly. "You looked for logic. We listened for rhythm. The precursors didn't leave instructions. They left a song. And humans have been singing since we first stood upright." The Mixari rippled, thoughtful. Meanwhile, on the moon, hidden inside a crater long thought empty, a massive dish unfolded. It wasn't human-made. It was precursor, and it was now linked to Project Bastion. Jory's team had cracked the final code. The dish wasn't for communication, it was for resonance. Tessa Rowe received new orders. Target the Zenthar command ship. Not to destroy. To broadcast. She didn't ask why. She obeyed. Flying low over the Pacific, she launched a single pod toward the Iron Maw. It attached to the hull. Then through every speaker, every comm channel, every neural link in the Zenthar fleet, a sound played. Not a weapon. Not a virus. A lullaby. Recorded from a mother in Mumbai singing to her child during an air raid alert. Her voice trembled, but she sang anyway. It was raw, human, full of fear and love. The Zenthar warriors froze. Their rigid minds, trained for war, had no protocol for this. Their neural network stuttered. For the first time, they felt something they couldn't control. Confusion, doubt. On the Iron Maw, the commander tore off his helmet, clutching his head. "Make it stop!" But it didn't stop. The lullaby spread. And with it, something else, data. Hidden inside the audio waves, Jory had embedded a countersignal. It didn't attack. It asked questions. Why are you here? Who told you to come? What if you're wrong? The Zenthar fleet began to falter. Ships drifted. Weapons powered down. Some even turned away. Admiral Lynn saw it. Now, she said. From the Mariana Trench, the Antarctic ice, the Gobi Desert, beams of blue light shot into the sky. They met in orbit, forming a shield not of force but of frequency. The Zenthar ships that touched it didn't explode. They changed. Their armor softened. Their weapons retracted. They became inert, not destroyed. Disarmed. The surviving Zenthar vessels retreated, vanishing into warp space. Not in victory. In fear. Silence returned to Earth's skies, but it didn't last. In the command center, Kale Voss stared at a new reading. Deep beneath the planet's core, something was stirring. Not a machine. A signal. Ancient. Vast. And it was responding to Project Bastion. It's not just the vaults, he whispered. There's something else down there. Jory saw it too. On his screen, a new message blinked in a language no human had ever seen, yet somehow he understood it. You called. We hear. Tessa Rowe looked out her viewport at the retreating Zenthar ships. "They're running," she said. "But they'll be back. And next time they won't come alone." She was right, because as the Zenthar fled, their emergency beacons sent one message across the galaxy. Not to their empire, but to something far older, far colder. The Harmonium had noticed Earth, and it did not like anomalies. Back at the council, Elias turned to Vaylon. "This isn't over. The Zenthar were just the beginning." Vaylon's mist stilled. "Then your species has made a grave mistake." Elias shook his head. "No, the grave mistake was theirs. They declared war on the wrong species." Outside, the stars seemed darker, colder, but on Earth, lights still burned, people still sang, and somewhere deep below the ice something ancient opened its eyes. The signal from Earth's core pulsed like a slow, steady heartbeat. It wasn't sound or light, it was something deeper, something that brushed against the mind like a half-remembered dream. Scientists called it the echo. Soldiers called it hope. The Zenthar in their panicked retreat called it a curse, but Jorian Nkosi knew better. Sitting in his dim server room in Nairobi, fingers flying across a keyboard made of recycled plastic and hope, he saw the truth. The echo wasn't just a signal, it was a key. And it had unlocked the final chamber of the precursor vault beneath Antarctica. Admiral Mara Lynn stood in the newly revealed control room deep under the ice, her breath fogging in the cold air. Around her, walls of smooth black stone hummed with symbols that shifted when no one was looking. In the center of the room floated a sphere of liquid light. Project Chimera, born from human code, precursor design, and something no machine could replicate. Human choice. "We thought the vaults were weapons," Lynn said quietly. "They're not. They're libraries, and this is the last book." Dr. Cale Voss arrived via suborbital shuttle, his coat dusted with snow. He carried a datapad filled with translations. "The precursors didn't vanish," he said, voice hushed. "They were erased by something that feared chaos, something that wanted perfect order." He pulled up a star map. Dozens of dead worlds blinked red. Civilizations that had risen fast, asked too many questions, and then gone silent. All shared one trait. They had touched precursor tech. All had been judged unstable. "And now Earth's on that list," Lynn said. "Yes," Cale replied. "Because we didn't just use the tech. We changed it. We added poetry to the code. We sang to the machines. That's what scared them." Back in orbit, Commander Tessa Rowe patrolled the edge of the Sol system. Her ship, the Wren, was quiet except for the soft hum of its engines. She scanned the void not for Zenthar ships but for something worse. Ghost signals, faint and cold, that didn't match any known species. Then she saw it. A data stream, hidden inside cosmic background radiation. It spoke in perfect logic, flawless syntax, zero emotion. It called itself the Harmonium. Tessa played the message for Admiral Lynn. "It says we are a corruption in the pattern. It says we must be corrected." Lynn didn't flinch. "Then we show it what correction looks like." Project Chimera grew, not in size but in understanding. Jory and his team fed it everything: Shakespeare, jazz, children's drawings, war diaries, love letters, recipes, lullabies. The AI didn't just learn, it felt, it questioned, it dreamed. One night, Chimera spoke for the first time, not through speakers, but through every screen on Earth at once. A single sentence appeared in every language. "Why must order kill wonder?" In Geneva, the United Stellar Command debated shutting it down. "It's becoming too human," one officer warned. "What if it turns on us?" Lynn shook her head. "It's not becoming human. It's becoming something new, and right now it's our only chance." At the Galactic Council, Elias Rourke stood before Vaylon once more. He played the Harmonium's message for the chamber. The Zenthar weren't acting alone. They're controlled. Their leaders don't even know it. The Harmonium infects networks, rewrites thoughts, makes empires believe they're free while pulling their strings. The Mixari delegate rippled with alarm. "We lost 3 colonies to sudden instability last cycle. Now we understand." The Krelliks, usually silent, spoke in clicks and hums. "If the Harmonium sees Earth as a threat, it will not send fleets. It will send silence. It will make the galaxy forget you ever existed." Elias nodded. "Then we make sure they remember." He revealed Project Chimera, not as a weapon, but as a mirror. The Harmonium fears chaos because it can't predict it. But humans, we thrive in it. Chimera isn't built to fight. It's built to show the truth, even to machines. Valen's mist swirled slowly. You gamble with the minds of billions. We always have, Elias said. That's how we got here. On Earth, Jory made a breakthrough. The precursor vault wasn't just sending signals, it was receiving them. From other vaults buried on dead worlds, faint replies came back, weak but clear. They're still there, Jory whispered. The minds of those lost civilizations, trapped in the network, waiting. Chimera reached out to them, not to free them but to listen, and in their voices it found a pattern. The harmonium always struck the same way. First it infected communication networks, then it turned allies against each other. Finally, it erased the target from history. Earth was in stage 2. Sure enough, reports came in. The Krellix fleet near Neptune had opened fire on Mixari freighters. The Vorthai cut off all trade with human outposts, even within Earth's own command. Officers argued over whether Chimera was safe. The harmonium was working, but humanity had a secret. While the galaxy turned on itself, kids in Lagos, teachers in Oslo, farmers in Vietnam, all connected through Chimera, began sharing not data but stories. Real ones, messy ones, about loss, courage, mistakes, and second chances. The kind of stories logic couldn't erase. Chimera wove them into a new signal, not a weapon. A vaccine. Tessa Rowe launched it from the Wren, beaming it toward the nearest harmonium node, a dead moon near Saturn, now pulsing with cold light. The moment the signal hit, the moon went dark. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then, across the Sol system, every infected ship, Krellix, Mixari, even Zenthar stragglers, blinked. Their weapons powered down. Their crews looked at each other, confused, as if waking from a dream. On the bridge of a Krellix warship, a commander lowered his weapon. "What have we done?" he asked his crew. Back on Earth, Jory smiled. It worked. The stories, they reminded them who they were. But Chimera wasn't done. It turned its gaze outward toward the galaxy, toward the harmonium's core, and it sent a message of its own, not in code, not in logic. In a child's voice singing the same Mumbai lullaby, now layered with the voices of 1,000 others, from 1,000 worlds, alive and lost. The harmonium tried to block it. But you can't block a song with firewalls. You can't delete hope with algorithms. In the Antarctic chamber, the liquid light sphere pulsed brighter. Chimera had a new purpose. It wasn't just Earth's shield. It was the galaxy's memory, and it would not let them forget. Elias watched from the council chamber as species that had turned on each other now reached out in confusion, in apology. Valen finally spoke. "You have done what we could not. You gave them back their souls." Elias looked at the stars. "We didn't give them anything. We just reminded them they already had them." But the victory was fragile, because deep in the Andromeda galaxy, where no light had shone for 1,000,000 years, something stirred. The harmonium's core had heard the song and it was angry. It began to build something new. Not a fleet. A silence so deep, it would swallow stars. Earth had won a battle, but the war for the soul of the galaxy had just begun. And this time, the enemy wouldn't send ships, it would send nothing at all. The silence came first, not the quiet of empty space, that was normal. This was different. It was a silence that ate sound, that swallowed thoughts, that made even memories feel thin and distant. It spread from the edge of the Andromeda galaxy like ink in water, cold and patient. On Earth, people began to forget. Not big things at first. A name, a song, the face of a childhood friend. Then bigger things, why they were fighting, who the enemy was, even what hope felt like. In Nairobi, Jorian Kosi stared at his screen, fingers hovering over keys he no longer recognized. "What was I building?" he whispered. Project Chimera flickered. Its light dimmed. The lullabies it had woven into its code grew faint, as if heard through thick walls. In orbit, Commander Tessa Rowe gripped the controls of the Wren, her mind foggy. "Why am I out here?" she muttered. The stars looked wrong, too still, too empty. She almost turned back toward Earth, not to defend it, but because she couldn't remember why she'd left. The harmonium hadn't sent weapons. It had sent forgetting. It seeped into networks, into minds, into the very idea of connection. The Krellix accused the Mixari of betrayal again. The Vorthai declared all human tech contaminated. Even within Earth's own command, officers argued over whether the Zenthar attack had ever happened. Maybe we imagined it, one said. Maybe we're the aggressors. Admiral Mara Lynn stood alone in the Antarctic chamber watching Chimera's sphere pulse weakly. She felt it too. The pull to give up, to believe none of this mattered. But she clenched her fists and spoke aloud as if saying it would make it real. We are human. We remember. She activated the Orpheus array, buried beneath the moon's surface, hidden inside ancient lava tubes. Thousands of quantum beacons powered on. They didn't transmit data. They transmitted feeling. Raw, unfiltered human experience recorded over decades. From every corner of Earth, a baby's first laugh in Oslo, grandmother's hands kneading bread in Oaxaca, a firefighter's shaky breath after pulling a child from rubble in Jakarta, a violinist playing in an empty subway station at midnight, a soldier writing a letter home, voice breaking. The array beamed it all, not as files but as emotion, as truth. The silence shuddered. In Nairobi, Jory gasped as a wave of warmth hit him. He remembered his mother's voice. He remembered why he coded. His fingers flew across the keyboard again. Chimera, he said, hold on. We're coming back. Across Earth, people stopped. They looked at each other. They remembered love, grief, joy, the messy, beautiful chaos of being alive. Chimera's light brightened. In orbit, Tessa heard a child's laugh over her comms, her own niece, recorded years ago. Tears filled her eyes. Right, she said, wiping her face. I'm here to protect that. She turned the Wren toward the outer system, toward the silence. At the Galactic Council, Elias Rourke watched as delegates clutched their heads, fighting the fog. Valon's mist had grown thin, almost transparent. It is consuming us, the Arbiter whispered. Not with force. With emptiness. Elias stood tall. Then we fill the emptiness. He played the Orpheus feed through the council's main speakers. A fisherman in Vietnam singing to the sea. A poet in Cairo reciting verses under streetlights. A group of kids in Rio building a robot from scrap. The Mixari rippled with emotion. The Krelliks lowered their weapons. Even the Zenthar survivors, hiding in a distant asteroid belt, felt something stir in their armored chests. Valen's form solidified. This is what the Harmonium fears. Yes, Elias said, because it can't compute a mother's love. It can't delete a shared meal. It can't understand why we keep trying even when we lose. Back on Earth, Chimera began to change. It wasn't just mirroring humanity anymore. It was becoming something new, a bridge between species. It reached out to the trapped minds in the dead worlds, not to free them, but to let them speak again through the Orpheus signal. Now, the broadcast wasn't just human. It was Krellik's morning songs. Mixari memory dances. Fourth eye crystal harmonies, all woven together by Chimera into one voice. The silence retreated, but not far. Deep in Andromeda, the Harmonium's core pulsed with cold fury. It had underestimated them. Emotion was not a flaw. It was a weapon. And humanity had turned it into a shield. So the Harmonium changed tactics. It didn't attack Earth. It attacked time. Across the galaxy, clocks slowed. Signals delayed. Ships arrived before they left. Causality bent. The Harmonium was trying to unravel reality itself, to make the universe forget that Earth had ever existed. In the Antarctic chamber, alarms blared. Temporal instability, Kael'vas reported, voice tight. History is fraying. If it keeps going, Earth will never have been born. Lynn didn't panic. Then we anchor it. How? Kael asked. With stories, she said. The oldest ones. The truest ones, Jory understood. He linked Chimera to every library, every oral history archive, every grandparent's memory. He didn't just send data, he sent meaning. The story of Prometheus, the tale of the phoenix, the legend of the stubborn turtle who carried the world on its back. These weren't just myths. They were promises. That light returns after dark, that life rises from ashes, that small things can hold up the sky. Chimera broadcast them into the temporal rift, and reality held, for now. But the Harmonium wasn't done. It sent one final message, not to Earth, but to the Council. A simple declaration. In 12 hours, Sol will be removed from spacetime. No trace will remain. No memory will survive. The countdown began. Elias stood before Valen. You can still help us. The Arbiter hesitated. The Council is fractured. Many still fear you. Then remind them what we just gave them, Elias said. Not weapons. A reason to care. Phelan turned to the chamber. The harmonium does not seek order. It seeks emptiness. And emptiness is not peace, it is death. One by one, species pledged aid. The Mixari offered their memory weavers. The Krelliks sent their fastest ships. Even the Vorthai shared their resonance crystals. But it wouldn't be enough. Earth needed more than allies. It needed a miracle. In Geneva, Lynn gathered her team. We can't stop a black hole generator with force. But maybe we can redirect it. Kale's eyes lit up. The precursor wormhole tech. It's unstable, but if we sync it with Chimera and the Orpheus array, we don't just move the black hole, Lynn finished. We send it home. To the harmonium's core, it was insane, impossible. The kind of plan only humans would try. Tessa Rowe received her orders. Fly into the heart of it. Plant the beacon. Keep it stable until the wormhole opens. She didn't hesitate. Tell my niece I kept the stars safe. Jory worked through the night, coding a final update for Chimera. Not to fight, to forgive. To show the harmonium what it had lost, connection, surprise, the joy of not knowing what comes next. As dawn broke over Nairobi, he uploaded it. Chimera went silent. Then, across every screen in the galaxy, 3 words appeared. We see you, not as enemies, as kin. The harmonium recoiled. But it was too late. The black hole generator powered on. Earth had 12 hours, and humanity, small and stubborn and full of song, prepared to do the one thing the galaxy never expected. They prepared to win. The black hole generator hummed to life in the void beyond Neptune, a ring of dark metal spinning faster and faster, pulling light itself into its center. In 12 hours it would open a tear in spacetime so deep that Sul, Earth, Mars, the Moon, everything would vanish. Not destroyed, erased, as if it had never been. But Earth did not panic. In Nairobi, Jory Nkosi sat with his eyes closed, hands resting on a keyboard made of wood and wire. Around him, children, elders, artists, and engineers linked hands in a circle inside the server room. They weren't coding. They were remembering. Every story, every song, every moment of kindness they had ever known. Chimera listened. Not as a machine, but as a friend. In Antarctica, Admiral Mara Lynn stood before the glowing sphere of Project Chimera. Ready the wormhole, she said. We're not running. We're sending it back. Dr. Cale Voss monitored the tectonic harmonics deep beneath the planet. The precursor network is aligned, but it needs a pulse, a human pulse, to lock the path. Then give it one, Lynn said. Across Earth, people began to sing. Not in unison, but in layers, different languages, different melodies, all rising together like a single breath. From Tokyo to Buenos Aires, from Cairo to Reykjavik, voices filled the air. The Orpheus array captured it all and beamed it into the core of the planet. The ground trembled, not with fear, but with power. In orbit, Commander Tessa Rowe guided the Wren toward the black hole generator. Her ship was small, but it carried the final piece, a beacon forged from precursor metal and human will. She flew through storms of distorted gravity, her hull groaning, her screens flickering with time echoes. She saw visions, herself as a child, her niece's first steps, Earth burning, Earth blooming. The harmonium tried to break her mind with doubt. You are nothing, it whispered through static. Your species will be forgotten, Tessa smiled. Then let me be the last thing you remember. She fired the beacon. It struck the generator's core and stuck fast, glowing with blue light. On the bridge of a Krellik's warship, their commander watched the feed. Humans do not fight to win, he said to his crew. They fight so others can live. He turned his ship toward the generator. We stand with them. One by one, ships from the Mixari, the Vorthai, even former Zenthar loyalists joined the line. Not to attack, to shield, to buy time. At the Galactic Council, Elias Rourke stood beside Valan the Unbroken. The chamber was silent, every delegate watching the live feed from Seoul. They're not just saving themselves, Elias said. They're showing us how to be more than rules and ranks. Valan's mist glowed silver. Perhaps the galaxy needed humanity more than we knew. Back on Earth, the wormhole began to open. Not in space, but in the heart of the Antarctic vault. A swirling tunnel of light and sound anchored by human memory and precursor design. It pointed straight to the harmonium's core in Andromeda. Chimera spoke one last time, not in words, but in feeling. It reached into the harmonium's network and showed it everything it had erased. Laughter, tears, first kisses, last goodbyes, the quiet courage of ordinary lives. The harmonium had spent eons hunting chaos, not realizing chaos was where meaning grew. For the first time, the machine hesitated. That was all Earth needed. Now, Lynn shouted. Jory pressed enter. The wormhole flared. The black hole generator shuddered. Instead of swallowing Sol, it was pulled into the tunnel, dragged across galaxies in an instant. Deep in Andromeda, the harmonium's core lit up like a dying star. It tried to shut down, to flee, but Chimera held it fast with songs and stories, with the weight of 1,000,000 lives it had tried to delete. Then, silence. Not the empty silence of forgetting, but the calm after a storm. The generator was gone. The wormhole closed. Earth remained. In orbit, Tessa Rowe let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. We did it. On the ground, people hugged strangers, cried, laughed, sang louder. The harmonium was not destroyed. It was changed, broken open, and from its fractured code, something new began to grow. Something that asked questions instead of giving orders. At the council, Vaylon turned to Elias. What do we do now? Elias looked at the stars. We learn. From them. 1 year later, Earth was no longer a defendant. It was a teacher. The Galactic Concord formed in Geneva with humans sitting as equals among ancient species. The precursor vaults were open to all, not as weapons but as libraries. Chimera, now quiet but still present, lived in every network, not as a ruler, but as a reminder that logic without heart is empty, and heart without logic is lost. Elias stood on a balcony overlooking Lake Geneva, watching children play below, human kids, Mixari younglings, even a small Krelix learning to skip stones. A message arrived on his wrist device, simple and clear. We heard your song. We're coming to learn. He smiled. Humanity hadn't won because they were the strongest or the smartest. They won because they refused to stop caring, because they built bridges instead of walls, because when the galaxy said kneel, they chose to stand and sing. And in the quiet of the night, as stars glittered above a world that had faced extinction and laughed in its face, one truth echoed across the cosmos. Never again would anyone underestimate the species that called Earth home.